In Arkansas, we all love a good fish fry, but we may need to be a little more concerned about what we're dropping in the grease. We're talking catfish on this edition of Tune In.
Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Here's your host, Representative Rick Crawford.
And we are back for another edition of Tune In. I am your host and your representative, Rick Crawford. Glad you could join us. I want to talk to you a little bit about catfish. So let me go back to the 2008 Farm Bill where there was a provision authorized to transition catfish inspection from FDA, Food and Drug Administration, to USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service. What that did essentially was bring catfish online or in line with other livestock commodities, poultry, beef, pork, and et cetera. And so we worked very hard on this in the 2014 Farm Bill to make sure that it wasn't threatened. And it was a fight, I'll be honest with you. But what this had to do with was safeguarding our domestic food supply from catfish that's entering the country from places like Vietnam and East Asia, from entering the United States in some pretty deplorable conditions.
Government import refusal data, FDA import alerts, no investigations show that banned drugs and chemicals were discovered in fish imported from Vietnam and China. Even the FDA's Deputy Commissioner for International Special Programs testified before a Senate committee in 2007 saying that the use of unapproved antibiotics or chemicals in aquaculture raises significant health concerns. He went on to say that the FDA found unapproved new animal drugs and unsafe additives in 25% of the samples from China.
For our YouTube and Facebook viewers, you can see on the screen some images from Vietnam where these fish have been raised in areas that also contain human waste, among other contaminants. And still, in spite of that, there are those who oppose the catfish inspection change.
The purpose of the USDA Catfish Office is purportedly to make sure catfish is safe for human consumption. I'm all in favor of ensuring that American consumers enjoy wholesome catfish. The problem is the Food and Drug Administration already inspects all seafood, including catfish.
Opponents argue that catfish are a low-risk food and that the switch was unnecessary. But perhaps that's because the FDA simply just wasn't doing their job. They weren't inspecting. In fact, as I said before, less than 2% of those fish entering the country were ever inspected. In fact, only a tiny fraction of the 1% were ever sent to the lab for testing. But just this week, USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service, or FSIS, has confirmed that 2 incoming shipments have been found adulterated, containing dangerous dyes and antibiotics. It really is deplorable, and what this is evidence that, in fact, the new program is working. These shipments won't enter the U.S. commerce at any point, and the shipments from companies in question will be subject to test and hold sampling at the importer's expense until corrective actions are taken. Despite this vindication, as I said, this indicates that, in fact, we were right and that the U.S. Catfish industry was right in requesting this transition, which they did. There are still those in the Senate and the House that are trying to undo this new process, the same opponents who fought against the change.
So repealing this duplicative USDA catfish program is a common-sense approach to eliminating wasteful government spending.
They claim that the new inspection program is duplicative, but it's simply not. If the FDA had been doing their job correctly in the first place, then these safety concerns would have been addressed a long time ago. These imported catfish aren't like other caught fish. They're farmed, not wild caught. They're different conditions. But their opposition is significant, and it's led to a vote of disapproval in the Senate this week, despite the input of senators like our own Senator John Bozeman.
There is nothing duplicative about this rule. The FDA no longer inspects any catfish. USDA's Food and Safety Inspection Service is the only agency inspecting catfish. Why should American consumers be subjected to harmful contaminants that we can prevent? Contrary to what you may hear, this program is also not costly. I've heard many different numbers thrown out and around, but the bottom line is the Congressional Budget Office has determined that this resolution would not save the taxpayer a single penny. Earlier today, the American Cancer Society said that they support keeping farm-raised fish inspection at USDA.
Now that we've found a regulatory regime that works and that is supporting a food safety initiative that was lacking, let's let this program work. So we'll keep you posted as this develops, and appreciate you tuning in again this week. We want to encourage you to sound off. We've had some good feedback in the last week or so, and we do want to respond to your questions. So tweet those questions to us at TuneInAR1, at TuneInAR1, or you can leave a comment on Facebook. But if you would like a response on the air, be sure to leave your name and your hometown so we can properly attribute your question and comment. Thanks for joining us again. Here's a look at this week's Vote Check. See you next time.